when I was listening to this new project you were talking about. I mean, I can see your work. I saw it. Yeah. But to see that, oh yeah, perfect. Like, this is the potential you have, and what are you thinking? But then also trying to figure it out. Yeah. You know, right now. Yeah. Like right at the edge of industries. Right. So it was fascinating, because I was thinking that how would you balance when you are figuring out that how much value I have and what market has to offer, and like what would be the ways to enter into it, and especially the finance one, but I mean, what I'm thinking is that when you are in your head thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna make this video, or I'm gonna do this project, how much do you think about, oh, would that be me, or how I'm gonna create it, or what I'm trying to do? This finance project.
Because it's not creative in that sense of like, it's freedom of me making what I want to make, right? And how much of that is me? I think that's where you start to, your talent and your passion turns into a job and into a skill that's marketed and paid for, and it's not always something that you want to do. And I think it's important to learn this now, because whenever I get into feature films, you know, hopefully, you're going to deal with producers. You're going to deal with people saying, we need to cut it down by 30 minutes because of this. The focus groups that are watching the film don't like it. And maybe it's, you know, it's going against what you thought and what you wanted. So I guess it's a little small ecosystem of what I'm to face. Now, specifically for this finance video, which is capturing this, what would be a dull event, I see it as an opportunity to make some money, because I haven't been working in almost a year now, because I made enough money from the last couple of videos I made to last me a while, because I'm in a position where I don't need to be spending that much because I'm a student, and my rent is covered because I'm a student, so I can, you know, use my money for other things. But I think now that I'm getting closer to this end next year, it's kind of like, okay, now you gotta pick it up. You gotta find some stuff. And how much of it is me in that video? I think a lot. I mean, there's that quote from Blade Runner, right? There's a little bit of the artist and all of their work, even though it might be illegal to use your own memories. And like, that's the kind of the same thing. It's the same approach with work that you do for others. It might not, you know, it's illegally, if that's a metaphor, it's illegal to do your own work that you'd want, you know, that creative freedom. But there's still a piece of you inside of it. Yeah. So I told him, he told me, you know, what's your strength? He told me, this guy that is wanting to hire me, what's your strength? And I said, he said, you only have one thing. And I said, storytelling. And I said, for me, forming a narrative, it's simple. It's the way I work. It's to me, telling a story isn't hard. So that's what you're going to get out of me. You're not going to get some fancy special effects, or you're not going to get some, I hope the editing you think is amazing, but for the right reasons, because my editing isn't showy. But you're going to get a good story. Whatever it is you might do, I'm going to try and tell a good story.
The reason why I actually asked it's because I think it is important to hear from someone who's young, and they know their craft. Right. So there's like art where you have ideas, and then there's craft where you like polish that. Right. It's two very different things. Yeah. And many people are creative, and they are artists, but they might be artists just for themselves, right? And it's fine, of course. Yeah. But then there are a lot of people, and that's what I think, that somehow we are these like concentrating, focusing, condensing kind of device. I don't want to call it a device, or just say like that is how we exist, right? We humans. So whatever you call your inner sense of self, it goes through all this reality and they just, absorb ideas.
Right.
So no matter who you are, whatever you are doing, you have like a bunch of ideas just jumbled up.
Yeah, we're a product of our environments.
Yeah. And how could you, for two reasons, I think, how would you put it out, whatever is inside of you, because you get too heavy.
Right.
One part that, and then there are some people who actually want to make this as their purpose.
Right.
And both of them, if you don't get an outlet, like if you just get heavy and you just start to get, and when I say heavy, I don't mean heavy in a way that depress or not that heavy. Even if you're perfectly fine,
you just lose the motivation.
Yeah, you lose more general motivation. You feel more clogged up.
Right.
Clogged down.
So the question is like, how do you get across the ideas that are in you, and how do you put them into life?
But I think that's where I can see that you do have a way around it, and this is one of your skills, which is that you found it very early and you were able to like somehow craft it.
Yeah.
And that is the reason why I wanted to ask you the question, because there are many people, as you can imagine, which, I mean, they're really good at many other things, but how you are then crafting whatever you have, this is a very new skill. Right. Because I think we are not trained, again, for crafting our own skills. Right. We just grew up in industrial society, so everything is in bunches. Yeah. So, I mean, looking at you, and you were talking about this project, it is that concept where, the poets never took, and when I say poets, I mean when they were the thing, and like 15th, 16th century, they all died poor or something, like they got famous maybe after, they could have done more or however. It's because they just didn't want it to change in different things. Right. And of course, externally, there were pretty less opportunities. Yeah. But I think now this is not that time, and people are sometimes quite a lot stubborn about, changing their ways and finding the way around it. So someone who is like, as you said, that, I love narrative. Yeah. But you'd be like, I'm going to be making a finance movie, or not a finance, like a video about a finance conference, and this is completely polar opposite. Yeah, but you're gonna make it work, right? For me, yeah. So I mean, that's why I wanted to get it out, because I think it would be helpful if someone would listen to it and would understand that there might be like a way to navigate around these things.
Well, I think I'll draw a historical example. I'm an absolute classical and orchestra music aficionado. Like I'm just like I my Discover playlist on Spotify is just classical music. For some reason they can't find good classical music, but it's just classical music. And reading Beethoven and Mozart's biographies, and any of the composers of the eras of the 1800s, 1900s. The majority of the music that, let's say, Mozart composed was for socialites, was for royalty, and for the church. So they were making music, but they were making music for certain people. If you read, if one of his is like Lacrimosa. I'm probably wrong, but for instance, he made Lacrimosa, and he made that for a certain church, for a certain noble, to be played at a certain church function. So like, when we have distance from something, we can fantasize about how amazing the process was to make it, but you realize, like, at least the way I see things from a very bare standpoint, it's like, what can I give you and what can you give me? And these creations of art that we know have stemmed from that. And as I think as poetic it is to think that Mozart made it just for Mozart, maybe he did for some of his work, but some of his work was made out of needing to make it because of a certain reason. And I think you might find, I hope to find myself in that privileged position to be able to make things because I want to make them. But I think it's important to be molded out of not being able to do that, because when you have too much freedom and too much to work with, no restrictions, then you have no motivation, right?
So this is, so you meant when you said something for you and for me,
right?
You mean like literally from like a barter system we had?
Well, I think it stems from that, right? I mean, if I'm meeting with you, right, we're getting knowledge out of each other. We're having discussion, and what we have around it is friendship and common interests. But when you strip it down to that, humans, friendships, relationships, whether it's like girlfriend and boyfriend, I think it's what do you give me and what do I give you, and it's all different to each person.
Yeah, I mean, I can see this is why this is good, because I can see the narrative,
right,
in even what you are talking right now. And I would always, because I would tend towards more philosophical and deconstruction aspects. So when you said that, and I'm like, that exactly makes sense, because that is exactly how our cells are formed.
Right.
We are multicellular organisms, so we give each other everything, but that doesn't mean that you have to be cynical about it.
Exactly.
It's the function of coexistence.
Right. It's cause and effect.
Yes. So this is so when I met you last time, and I had this in my head about a certain project, like a small one.
Yeah.
So I talked about it, and I was not like really. I realized afterwards when I was coming back, that maybe I actually presented this kind of a project for the first time.
Yeah.
How would I even know that? What would I bring to that?
Right.
So, and that's why I think in creative industry or whatever which you are trying to do, which is on your own, which is not part of a system which is already developed, and I don't mean system in any negative way, but just a system which is stable and you're just helping out. But let's say if you are trying to do something and you are trying to expand out, and you're trying to maybe learn something, many times I've realized that most of the blockage comes from when you are either overthinking about the process, and then the second part is when you actually go to the place and then you realize that how much of an amateur you are, and then you actually feel bad about it, because I realized that there's no way I would have ever known what to bring to that point, because I've never done it. So whatever I did, however wrong it was, it's better than the day before.
Right.
And the point which you said that you want to be at that privileged state about these creative projects where you can make only things from yourself, I think this is it's a very clear mistake. And now why I'm mentioning it's because I had no intentions to completely be in a artistic or visual industry, let's put it like that. But I might have to somehow. There's some drives which are going on, and I'm finding some parts of me which is pretty strong,
that move towards that.
So this, from right over there to trying to come over here, I think it's very similar to people who are even just want to be in this industry and they're starting up. It's very similar experiences.
Even I'll tell you, I guess, I mean, not in an arrogant sense, but I'm 20, right? And I started only 2 years ago when I turned 18. I'm turning 21 now, so it could almost be 3. And I turned 18 and I found filmmaking, and we'd already applied to universities. Everyone, knew what they wanted to do. They wanted, I'm going to go to school and be an engineer. I'm going to be a doctor. But we all changed after a year of college, and we're all studying different things. But I'm in this position where it's like, man, I really love filmmaking. I'm really interested in it. I really want to do it. And then I see like all these famous filmmakers, Steven Spielberg, Christopher Nolan. It's like they interview them. It's like, oh, I knew when I was 2. I knew when I was 4. I don't remember not making movies. And I'm like, man, I'm 18. I gotta catch up. But there's gonna be all these kids that are doing this. So I wasn't a creative person. I mean, we're all creative, but I mean, I wasn't an artistic person. I still wouldn't consider myself like an artist, because beforehand, I did not like art class. I'm not a good drawer. If it wasn't filmmaking, I wouldn't be doing something artistic. And because of that, because I grew up not being artistic or thinking even about doing something, I think I was going to be a trader. I loved stock trading. I had books and books about it. That was my thing. Maybe it wasn't my passion, but I was really interested in it. And I figured out I wanted to do filmmaking. And what did I do? I approached it, and I still do. I approach it from a very pragmatic sense, which I think creative people, artistic people lack, at least from my observations. And you have to be realistic and you have to be pragmatic. And I'm a dreamer. I imagine I stand in the kitchen and look out the window and my girlfriend says, "What are you doing?" And I'm really honestly just in my head, like, I don't even know what I'm imagining. I do that. But I'm also very realistic. And I approached my filmmaking and my craft in that way from the very beginning. I taught myself everything. I went out and I made stuff, and I taught myself everything because I didn't have a teacher. And I did what was practical, what I had in my hands, what I could work with. And I didn't limit myself more than I could because of my situation, if that makes sense. Like I think some people limit themselves because it's like, oh, I don't live in an interesting place and I can't make this. Make your place interesting. Just turn the phrase around. And when you made that point of, you're setting out on this journey that you might want to take part of. Either you're very overconfident and you're overthinking it. Sorry, not overconfident. Either you're overthinking it and you sit down and you're like, oh man, all these people have done this, all these people have done that. What am I going to do? I'm going crazy. You go crazy in your head. Or you're doing it and you realize, and you show up to film school and you realize, man, that guy is 3 years ahead of me. And he's making amazing stories and films, or he's amazing amazing art. And I'm just learning how to use a camera. And what a difficult position to be in. But I'll tell you right now, that guy who you're seeing was in exactly the same position you were in. And what separates, I don't know, is this the saying, the wheat from the chaff?
Yeah.
What separates the wheat from the chaff is discipline and perseverance and being realistic, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I should mention it that anyone, if someone is listening, they should check your videos out. Okay?
Let's make that the intro.
Yeah. No, they should check your videos out. So you are making short videos.
Do you want to do an introduction?
No. I mean, right. Yeah, then go for it.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Well, I'm Giovanni Montalvo. I'm a filmmaker. I'm from Texas and I'm studying here in London. And I'm a film director doing other things to try and get to that point as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I would put the link wherever we would put it.
Right.
So it would be interesting for someone, to look at what you are doing, and that's where are you coming from.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting. But this is exactly what some of the people are talking about, which I mean some of the astrophysicists and some of the cultural scientists, that they are seeing this new generation, a new it's not even age thing, but it's a new layer of existence. Right. You would say what you just said is that you want to be a dreamer, but you're also pragmatic.
Right.
You got to exist like that. Yeah. There's no you can get too stuck if you're too pragmatic, and if you're just a dreamer, you're not gonna achieve anything. Especially, I mean, at this age when everything is so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, you might
want it now.
Yeah, you want it, everything. So they are talking about that, how these people are like jumping into one dimension of existing and then to another, like in our head.
Yeah.
And I relate to it, and I understand that. And that is why all these cultural philosophies or even political philosophies of right and left doesn't really make any sense anymore to us. Yeah, it does not. And that is actually pretty much in your work, and exactly the bringing back to this finance video is that you see the other videos which you are doing, and then if they're gonna watch Rehearsal, which is a new film you just completed, it's just completely different thing, and you can see the pragmatic and artistic aspect, and that is how you fit the blocks. And
I don't fight it.
Yes,
I don't fight it because I know people will be like, oh man, but I don't want to do corporate work. it's like, but you need some money, you know, if you want to keep living and doing your thing, you can't fight it.
Yeah.
And you have to respect your position and what you want to do, but you also have to.
It's very exactly the point which you were mentioning about that this guy was 3 years ago at your place.
Yeah.
I think that is a good way to look at it, because most of the people only and that only look from the other side.
Yeah, from now.
Yeah, from now to the guy who is.
There's this saying. It's like people only talk to you when you're pop, and you know you only see Donald Glover. You only see Donald Glover when he's popular. And I think one of my favorite quotes ever is, "Don't you judge your chapter 2 by someone else's chapter 32," right? And I think that's something that so many people struggle with.
Yeah.
And I struggle with that as well. Like I'll look at one of my big inspirations right now is Damien Chazelle and Ryan Coogler. They're 31, 32, and they've just made La La Land, Whiplash, and Black Panther and Creed. Just so young for a film to be directors and having made, you know, Hollywood blockbusters and still be art.
Yeah.
And I look at them every day and I'm like, I wish I could be like that. But sometimes, you know, you're like, you're going at your own pace. Maybe you'll be like that. Maybe not at that age. Maybe younger. Maybe later. But you can't let that cloud your mind.
But the paradox is, and that is interesting, that when you get the vision or you get the motivation or whatever you get, that this is so my path, and I don't even have to put any effort into it. I'll just walk in towards it. That somehow seed comes from far away in the future. It's something which is not going to be achievable right now, but you feel it is right in your hands. And that's what motivates you so much, because it overwhelms you.
Right.
And that is why it's very hard to distinguish that, but the thing which motivated you is going to like drive you through your life. And it's not going to be something which you're going to achieve over weekends or even in a year's time. So people get demotivated. And that is the hardest part. And that's why it's paradoxical, because you realize a thing which is the only thing you know how to actually achieve. And that is so far away in the future. But now you have to figure out what steps I'm going to take to get closer to something which is so far away, because that is not going to be achievable anytime soon. Right. And that is the problem, where they take few steps and then they realize that, it's just, I'm not having that. Yeah. And it's like, but that is the thing which is very far away, and you might get it early and you might get it later on. Right. But you can't just target to have that in your heart.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, once you're there, you want something more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's true. And especially because I feel like we're taught, at least I was taught in high school in Texas, like you go to college and then you do your degree and you'll get your job. And everything's really like you do something and you'll get something. And life isn't that simple. It's not like I'll make this finance video and I'll get money. I mean, sure, it's written in the contract I will, but I'm talking like money, like opportunities that are more than just one video. How do you get to that? You gotta charm people. You gotta be confident. You gotta know the right people. You know, there's so many different factors that it's like it's not all simple. Like you said earlier, it's all cause and effect, and it's doing the right effects. The right causes. Yeah. And kind of thinking what effects you want.
Yeah, and that's exactly the talk last time we had. Yeah. This is not something, any kind of visualization or video making is something which is my strength. Yeah. So I felt like there's so much to learn. Right. It was overwhelming. Yeah. And it broke down so many different parts of what I was thinking of that small part. Right. And it was so good because I don't know what to think, so I let go of quite a lot of things. Yeah. And and then I was also dealing with some other pressure.
Yeah.
So what happened is that when somehow there is some sort of a breakage in this mental model, it also released all that pressure. So it was so strange that it has nothing to do with my video making. There's something else going on in my life, which is external, and of course it creates internal subjective pressure. Insane, like I wouldn't call it trauma, but something like that.
Yeah.
Let's say,
event,
like a better
a crisis.
word. Yeah. It's not a crisis.
Not in the bad sense.
Yeah. It was pretty negative.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an external event. Let's say, like it was like a life decision somehow. Okay. You were forced to do something.
Yeah.
I can say it. It's like my case home office thing.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it's like you literally, your life is depending on it. So it's very hard. So let's say that trauma got resolved, but there's so much lingering. But what I'm saying is that this is a perfect avenue which you can use anytime, anywhere, and especially art, I think.
Yeah.
I was clueless, and it was perfect because so much else got released, and then next morning it was like a refresh button, and it was really interesting how sometimes you have to deal with your ego, I would say, or mental construct, whatever you want to call it, especially when you're doing something creative. And I think that you can speak a lot to that.
I've been fortunate enough to live a very privileged life. I've grown up most of basically my whole life in America. But that's not to say I haven't had difficulties, not compared to what many other people face, but I've had some events come up. Like, I think related to what you've said, those moments where you have these life events, and that relates to the creativity and the experience and the things that you're creating. I haven't had that happen to me until last year in September, because I wasn't creating, and I didn't have a purpose until 2 years ago. So that's not a long time in the grand scheme of things. And not that many things have happened to me, especially in 2 years. And in August, late August.
You fall in love?
No. That's another one. That's another one. But in August 28th, there was a hurricane that came into Texas, and it's Hurricane Harvey. And from like Friday to Saturday, like my home just flooded, like, up to 1.5 meters of water. Just everything you've ever had lost. And I had to deal with that at the same time that I was moving and changing apartments and having to put deposits down on this and looking for a place, dealing with flooding back home. My family has lost everything. They were able to save some things, but the whole house is gone. Everything you've known. There's no time. I had a whole month, 2 months. I had no time to create. Filmmaking isn't essential. Filmmaking isn't life or death thing. I didn't have time to think about filmmaking. I had to deal with this. I have to move to a different apartment. I have to deal with my family. So it's like, what I did, actually? I made a video, a GoFundMe for my family, because I was sitting here and I'm like, what have I done? And I told my mom, this is the video that I got paid for the most, Mom. But I made a video in like 1 hour, in like 1 day. I'm talking like and I woke up at 9 a.m. and I finished it at 4 p.m. and I posted it because I knew that the time was short and the word needed to get out. And I made a video with footage that my mom sent me from the hurricane. And I made a video using me talking to the camera, and I put it all together, and I made a GoFundMe, and people donated $4,000. And I was able to help my family at least pay for some quick crisis things before any insurance could pay, like food or a new car. That was the most important thing because we lost both our cars, and in Texas you can't live without a car. Just quick things, quick help, and it helped a lot. And then after that all finished, like you said, after the hurricane, I think my life is after the hurricane. And maybe, like you said, fall in love after Cerise, and that happened in that summer beforehand. But there's my life before the hurricane and after the hurricane. And I think my life before the hurricane was one of more expedient creation. I would create YouTube videos and make all this content, and I love it. It's my hobby. It's a lot of fun to make these YouTube films. But then afterwards, this hurricane, this event happens, and it matured me. It made it's cliche to say, it made you realize life is shorter than anything can happen, but it's true, right? And then I realized, look, I know I'm a 20-year-old, but I like to think that I make mature decisions, and I'm like, okay, well, look, I'm in love with my girlfriend. Things are going great. My life is good. Sure, the hurricane happened back home. Things are good as they can be, even though the circumstances I find myself in. And that crisis, filled with comfort after you were done with it, made me think about my work when I had the chance to finally think about it. And I thought, okay, I'm making these YouTube videos that are really quick and expedient. And the definition of expedient is quick or receiving something, but there might be ill intent. And I think those YouTube videos I made were expedient because I was making them and I was devoting my time to them, but they maybe weren't giving me something bigger, something larger. And I decided, you know what? I want to write. I've been telling myself for so long that I'm gonna write films, but I've never really sat down and wrote. I've never followed that craft, that process, which is a whole different conversation. But I sat down and I wrote, and from November of 2017 to today, I've written around 7 short films, and now this past week I've started to develop the story for my first feature film. And I applied that same discipline, that same process that I had with my more expedient work to this, right? Am I answering the question?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just got so lost in thought.
No, go for it.
But yeah, no, and I guess I was telling my friends, and I was telling my teacher as well, like, I just feel like these last 6 months, this half year, haven't been as adventurous or as fast paced as my last year was. I haven't been traveling like crazy. But it's definitely been like maturing. Not in the sense like, oh, I was a boy, now I'm a man. But it's more in like a sense like, I knew what I wanted to do, but now I know what I want to do. And I know that I'm working towards it more clearly.
This is the experience which you just shared. I think so many people would relate to it, because most of the people who do something, and I mean most of the people, they have this somehow like a very, well, they explain it as a very meaningful experience. It's like having a very dangerous experience with least amount of consequences. Yeah. Because if you have consequences, you just maybe get damaged. Yeah. That's pretty much it. You're gone. You never hear from those people. Yeah. Yeah. So exactly. I mean, I actually went through a process which I can share, where I was subjectively and looks like externally looking that I might just get deported, right, and would never be able to come out of Pakistan. So imagine if someone who, especially my idea of world is based on exploring cultures and exploring different people's consciousness and trying to let go of what I was like 6 months ago. Yeah. This is something which would just damage me or my soul. I mean, that's what I was thinking. Maybe it's not how won't be bad at that time. Yeah. But for me, the reality was, as you are saying, like, I feel like I would have lost everything. Yeah. And then I might just literally externally would be like deported something, which is, you're not really safe anywhere. Mm-hmm. So it was like two sides of who I am and what externally could happen from some foreign controlled borders if I'm trying to go or whatever. Yeah. And that's why I actually started doing these, because I was thinking about it. So I thought, I don't think there is enough time actually. Yeah. And it is grained in me right now. And I think most of the people, it would be very hard to just imagine that there is not enough time. Yeah. And I don't mean in a panicky way. Yeah. I mean, there's not enough time to just waste your beautiful life, actually. Yeah,
there's not enough time to think about how much time you don't have.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah. So it is actually a very relatable experience. And most of the people, I think, who are getting into these kind of artistic endeavors, I would say, I think they somehow get like this hit.
Right.
And I think this is very important for anyone. And I have this urge also to tell everyone that it would be better to learn from someone else's experience than to actually go through that damaging trauma.
Yeah.
But of course, the paradox is that
in life you have to face
you
those
have
things.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, you learn from other people's mistakes. Quite literally, like, what I do isn't like because I know something that someone else doesn't. I'm really quite literally copying what I've seen the people that I look up to do. I'm copying their process. I'm seeing, what have they done? Well, I mean, look where they are. They've done something right. So I just do what they've done. And of course, it turns into your own thing. But like, I feel like if you're trying too hard to find this thing that's just yours, then I think that's not human, because we're ourselves, but we're not.
Yeah, no. You're right. It's so cool, because that is, I think, the distinction between scientists and artists.
Yeah.
Scientists would say clearly that, oh yeah, we walk on the giants of the others who have passed, and that's how we are able to stand tall and look the furthest away.
Yeah.
Except blatantly, because usually if scientists or scientific training is correct, is that they train you how to strip off your biases,
right,
and to let go of whatever you are thinking, and like somehow change your senses and perceive what is going on through a procedure which is stripping all the biases.
Right.
But with art, it's the other way around. You actually put yourself into the mix of reality and then bring something back.
Yeah.
So I think it is one of the hardest thing for an artist, as you are saying, to realize that, oh yeah, I mean, you can copy as much as you can.
Yeah.
And it depends on your intentions.
Yeah.
What are you trying to do?
It'll come out different.
Yeah.
It'll come out to turn to something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, I'm biased about it, clearly. I mean, my partner, I mean, my friends, of course, my interest is all about cinema.
Right.
Movies, storytelling. And I realized now, a few years ago, that, I mean, why this is, because always I'm involved with this collectivist society who tells stories.
Right.
And then these, the archetypical characters, that's where all the values come from.
Yeah.
But I do believe that, and I want you to tell me what do you think, that I do believe that, and I'm biased for sure, but cinema is really, I think, one of the most intense art form right now.
Well, yeah, I think of all the art forms, I mean, not in like putting other art forms down, but I think it is the most advanced.
Yeah.
And you see this, you can see this in countries that haven't fully developed their economies or aren't fully at the level of, let's say, developed countries, for the sake of simplicity. And you find that the countries with the most developed economies, the best quality of life, have the most advanced cinema. Because cinema is very expensive, it's very difficult, and it's something very excruciating to do. So, yeah, I agree with you. It is the most advanced art form, and I think we'd have to transcend as the human race to find another art form as advanced as cinema, because what else can capture a story, and then it's just layers. Cinema is just layers, but it's all the art forms coming together.
Yeah,
it's all the art forms coming together.
Yeah, that's the point which you don't realize if you're not part of the process, that how many different type of art forms actually make this 3-4 minute video. Let's suppose if you are watching that, which you just enjoy as like this one clip of a thing.
Exactly.
Which is just a piece.
Yeah.
But it's
so many different things.
Yeah.
So many different things.
Yeah. And this is a quote which I forgot the guy's name. He says, cinema is reality 24 frame per second.
Right.
So you can imagine that how much of data we are taking in when we are watching anything which is built upon this art form. I mean, I truly considered when I understood that what it means to me to go to different places. Cinema as like my cathedral. I love to go in and just go into this deep present now.
It's an escape, and it's an escape and an experience.
Well. So here's the point. I think it's an escape if you go in and your whole life around that experience is just built upon escaping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if you go in, always, this is like a code where it's amazing that how deep you can go into the jungle and how far you can go into the woods. And it would be an amazing experience for you at that time. But to be honest, in the end, and if you look at your experiences in a grand scheme of time, what really matters is that what are you bringing out?
Yeah.
So if you are going to the cinema and you are having these crazy experiences and all that, but also you are bringing out something for some reason for those people, and I don't mean that you have to bring out always a thing, because then it would be a labor if you are there to that.
Yeah, that's why I don't think VR and it's gonna take off the way that people think it will.
Yeah,
it's labor. To have to participate in it.
Yeah. That's why VR could be better for therapy, because they are finding out. Yeah. But not, of course, as we are talking about like abstract, deep now, like connecting to those ideas which doesn't even have language.
Yeah, that's where you just need to sit and think and take it in.
Yeah. So again, it happens that when I'm going there, and of course, I mean, that's what you would do all your time. But when I'm going there, I'm bringing out a lot, not to make a film or anything, but to do my
your own
thing.
Thoughts,
my things, or my research thought, or my connectivity, or my like syncing ideas from here to here. And so this is a completely different movie, and it has nothing to do with what I'm doing.
Right, you're not a filmmaker because you watched the film. I think this is a great example. It's like Denis Villeneuve was doing a talk at Google about Blade Runner 2049. And the speaker is like this big AI research scientist at Google, probably one of the best in the fields. He was talking about how he was inspired to become an AI researcher because of Blade Runner, the original film. So that's exactly you take from that. You watch Interstellar. Some kid in 20 years is gonna say that's why you became the astronaut, the most famous astronaut of today. Like it's made as part of the human experience, as cliche as that might be. You're just adding to the zeitgeist.
So what do you were talking about Moonlight?
Yeah.
When did you saw it?
Well, I don't watch, disclosure, I don't watch many films, and I do watch films, but like I'm not like, I would never call myself a cinephile. But I do watch films, and I watch them with a lot of intention. And when I watch a movie, I watch it. Like I'll watch it and I'll think about it for 3 or 4 days, and I'll make notes on it. And first and foremost, I watch it as the audience and to enjoy it. But then I'll watch it as a filmmaker because, it's my craft. But I watched Moonlight about 2 months ago, and I watched it. And it's a very special film because I watched it, and it's not a film that moves, at least me. It didn't move me instantly. I don't know if it touched me when I finished watching it. We're talking about like right when the credits happened. But man, did I know something had happened. Something had happened. And it's rare a film that can do that. And then I thought. And of course, because Moonlight is a film about two homosexual black men, it's extremely distant to my existence and my reality. But it did make me think a lot, and maybe I would have understood it more in the first go if I was related, or even if I had friends who were gay and black, which I don't have friends that are gay and black. But I do have friends that are gay and friends that are black. But it made me think, it made me realize. And then I thought about themes and I thought symbolism, and I looked, and the reason it's such a phenomenal film is because it's got so many layers behind that. And I watched it again just yesterday. And I actually, I've been reading the script because it's interesting to see it's not, for me, it's necessary because I want to be a writer director, and I need to know what the scripts are like, because that's how you learn your craft. But it's interesting to see the layers and the intention, because when you're reading the script and watching the film, which is what I do, I can really analyze the dialogue that's being said, because sometimes when you're watching a movie, you forget really quick what just happened. But here I'm being forced to stop and listen. And there's this just... The third act of the film takes place in that diner, right? Where he's going to go see Kevin again. And it wasn't until the second... I got goosebumps just thinking about it. Until the second time I watched it, that I just realized just how much of a masterpiece this is. It's bringing, first of all, this ambitious and experimental first and second act together to a close, which to bring a story like that to a close is ambitious, to say the least. And it's resolving, as much as a film like that and that story, right? As much as that story can be resolved, it's resolving it. And I truly realized when it came to the diner scene that the way that Kevin and Chiron interact with each other, it's just like it's been the whole film. From the very beginning, I realized, because of the script, the whole time, they speak in metaphor and they speak in allusion to their true feelings. And to that, I didn't realize that until the second watch. Like, it spoke so much to me that, you know, when he's a little boy, he has this experiences, and maybe it molds him. And it's truly in the second act, when the teenager, the way that he interacts with his friend Kevin, it's always any love they have for each other, any affection, is never said directly. It's always alluded behind this masculinity, behind this facade that they've had to build because of their circumstance. And in the end, when they come to the diner and they're sitting down, and he's like, "So why'd you call me here?" Right? After they've had this whole encounter, which within itself is amazing. But Kevin says, "I heard this song." Because Kevin can't at that point tell him, "Why did I call you?" Because I remember you, because I miss you, because I want to see you again, right? And he plays a song by Aretha Franklin. It's like, so I forget how it goes, but you know, the lyrics, line by line, explain their emotions and their feelings. And that's how they spoke to each other, in a different level.
Yeah.
And that's
it's hard because we are actually getting to our honest selves still. Right. We are evolving, as you say. Yeah. It's very hard to even accept love. Right. I mean, I can't tell you, man, "Oh, Gio, I had an amazing time with you. I love you, man." Because it would be hard for you even to accept it. It's a very hard thing.
Everyone has a different perception of it as well.
Yeah. I mean, even if you agree on a word and you understand what it means, and even if you know that, oh yeah, what are we talking about? Like, if the love, when we are talking about, we're talking about like an overall, like, dissolving of your only individual identity, and realizing that the other person sitting in front of you might be just, you know, leading another life. And just generically, I mean, just scientifically, we understand that we are beautiful expressions of something which is one. Yeah. So whatever that means, I mean, people can take it in religious context, people would take it into scientific context. We don't care about the context. We're just talking about what we can know right now. But you're right, this movie, that is why it was so beautiful. And it was so strange, because I avoided that movie. I was like, man, this is like politically correct. Yeah, it would be like a politically correct movie. I had that in my mind. Yeah. But then I, of course, heard about it from people who I really respect. And I was like, oh, okay, so it's not that movie. But I'll watch it whenever I can. So me and Raza watched it together. And I mean, for me, there are certain moments in my life where I watch these kind of movies with someone I love, and it just becomes this amazing, beautiful capsule, right, where I exist actually even right now. So this movie, just, I mean, I understood it a little bit because I'm grown up in Pakistan, and this society was very machoistic. So you have to fight. You like my friends and everyone, you have to fight a lot to survive. So, and then there were a lot of guys who I knew who liked, of course, I mean, I think they were bisexuals. But it was very hard for them
to express themselves.
So they they actually had physical contact with each other, but they just couldn't, like, it was, they didn't even know that what to say.
Right.
So this is a very specific context. It's beautiful to actually understand that story. But I mean, even generally right now, that is why I think it's important. And this is a little bit different than what I'm saying, but most of the writers you read and you get inspired by, most of the filmmakers, not, I mean everyone, but most of the filmmakers which make insane movies, they always had an experience where they have perceived this reality so differently than most of us, that if you would ask them that how was the experience like when you were thinking or when it happened, you would literally claim that, oh, this guy may be a little crazy and maybe on drugs. That is how different I think the perceptions can be. And I mean, you can imagine, like, you're when you are making a film or you're in the middle of something, I think you might forget sometimes that you were Geo.
No, I have to be in that story. Like, you have to be so focused in. I think you have to. I think you have to be a little bit crazy to want to make a film. Not even. Sorry. Anyway, you know, there's different people involved, but you have to be a little bit crazy to want to be a director, because, especially if you wrote it. Because it's a monumental task. It's a monumental task, and all the directors that make these great films are crazy. You know, not in a bad sense, as in, like, they do things in their own way differently, and it's different, and you might think, man, they're crazy, but they're doing it because that's the way they want to do it. Like, I don't know, like I think my friends growing up have always thought, like, that I'm so distant, or I'm so I don't want to hang out with them, or I don't want to do things, but, like, I don't know, I don't have that need to hang out with people or have, like, these social interactions all the time. But what I do have a need for is to, like, be doing what I want to do, which is tell a story. So I guess, like...
But that's how you connect.
That's how I connect. That is how I connect. Like, I don't connect by hanging out. Just
hanging out is not something.
It's not something for me. To me, my crazy thing is... My friends think I'm crazy is I don't do any drugs. I don't drink alcohol at all. I don't even I don't hang out with them. I don't party. I don't do anything that any teenager my age should be doing. And to them, that's the craziness in my ecosystem for me. Like, I'm the crazy one, or, you know, we're using the word crazy, but I'm the...
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I understand that. Look, I live with one of that person. So it's very odd. And there is a thing about, look, you get things done and then you pay for that. Right. Because there are a lot of workaholic issues which comes with it, which is very hard to deal with. I mean, if someone who is not getting the things done which you are getting done, and they would deal with something which you are dealing with, it would destroy them. Right. So there's a balance in that. Balance. But I mean, it's like you can't have an ecosystem where everyone you think that's what I used to think. What I'm talking about, like your personality type. I used to think that, you should be, like, open, loving, and you should be just always transcending, and you should always be looking to you know, adopt this thing and then, you know, somehow create something out of it. But then who would follow the systems and who would take care of?
You need the order.
Yes, you need all those pieces to actually, you know, to be where you are. Right. You can't do it if it happens that something goes wrong and then we are back to the society where you have to do something for food.
Alejandro Iñárritu said, when they asked him, like, so if you were in a bunker and it was a nuclear apocalypse, would you make films? He was like, no. But Ridley Scott said yes. But I'm like, nah, I don't make films for myself. Maybe I do. I mean, just to a certain degree, I tell a story because I want to tell it. But, like, man, if I didn't have someone to watch it, I'd go crazy because when I finish making a movie, I'm not watching the movie. I'm watching the people watching the movie.
Yeah.
I could care less. Honestly, I could care less about the film. I care about what people feel from the film because, like, sure, I'm happy with what I've made. I'm proud of it, but like I'm not selfish that way as a filmmaker. I don't make art for myself. I make it for everyone else.
And again, this is good because you're talking particularly about the craft.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna go back a little bit, and how you were saying that how you're connecting and how you're making movie and how much you enjoy looking the people.
Yeah.
I think whatever drug anyone wants to take, however you want to hang out with someone, at the core of it, what I have understood, and everyone has their own meaning about this, it is to connect to the people around you, and to the environment or whatever you want to call it. And you don't need it that much because that's what you are doing already. You are connected to so many different individuals, and you love it when someone watches your film and I don't know, they cry, or they laugh, or they have this intense emotions about it. I mean, that is one of your ways to connect, and that is why that's why I was thinking, like, imagine we all have this experience of our consciousness, like, focused into like these different pieces and all these humans and looking forward. So, like, imagine there's a fish ball or there's a water ball. Like, this is an example. So let's say there's a ball of water which doesn't have a container, and we are all inside of it, and then there are concentrated points all around it, and of course, like, you would love, like, how would it feel? We can't even understand how it feel, but it's like we everything is like part of one thing. But then all of these concentrated spots do their different tricks to actually connect. But then there's one spot somehow which, and I don't mean it as a way that this is better. It is a cool way to connect because you connect to so many people. And this small dot in that water ball does something that it sprinkles something out, and then it just goes to so many different dots, and it just connects with so many different things.
I think you described art. Art does what it does because of what it does. Like, you don't know if something's gonna do well or something's gonna touch people, but when it does, it does. I mean, it's that dot, just it's there, and it's like, if it affects people, it affects people.
But so I remember about what comes out of someone who is making a movie. We were discussing that how mostly what comes out as an art is something which is completely different than what is, or not completely different, but mostly different than what is actually going on in that person's mind.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a good example is that film I just made, The Rehearsal. I mean, it's a dark topic, isn't it? I mean, people tell me it's a heavy watch, but like, I can't relate to that because I've watched it like 45 times. And having, conceived the idea and gone through it all, I mean, like, I'm the god in that world, and I don't feel any emotion, but I did make a dark film, and I realized that after I saw people watching it. And I thought, my friends were very surprised because the first film I ever made last year, the first real short film, was like this romantic, cheesy, like almost cringy kind of story. And I think that's these darker stories, these have come from me maturing, like we mentioned earlier, for me understanding more the stories I want to tell. Because I don't want to tell dark stories only, right? It's just what I wanted to tell right now. Like, the story I'm writing right now, the feature film, it incorporates romance, and it incorporates it's more of a coming of age. So it's not going to be a thriller. It's not going to be dark drama. But I think what I've touched on with this darker film I've made is touching more on reality as I've come to understand it. Because I think a good example is there's me before the hurricane and me after. Me before the hurricane, oh, the world is all beautiful and it's all perfect, and I'm going to make these really amazing cinematic videos and just paint everything with a nice brush and everything looks great. But me now, I like to look at things, not that I didn't before, but like I'm leaving to Guatemala Tuesday. If I was leaving to Guatemala on Tuesday a year ago before the hurricane, I would have made a really cinematic video, captured some really cool shots, maybe asked some people some questions. But me going to Guatemala now, I want to capture the children, and I want to have conversations with people that I'm traveling with about circumstance. And, you know, we're coming from America, we're coming from Canada, we're coming from the UK, we're coming to a town in Guatemala where there's people that are probably never going to leave this town. They probably haven't traveled further than 20 miles from where they live. And if they do live, it's going to be a very difficult journey. And here we are coming to be here. And these, not saying more realistic, because everything has a sense of realism to it, but these more mature, I guess you could say in a sense, not to say that something less mature like romance, a romantic film isn't better, but you know, these deeper connotations. And I don't know, I feel like my work has become more confident in itself because I trust that and I don't fight it. I don't know. To be honest, I'm just going with the flow.
No. Yeah. It does make sense because however honest you are about yourself, that's where your work would lead you to, and that would be more honest. Yeah. And well, when you are more honest about things, look, there is a very, very brutal side to it. And you know what the brutal part of that side is? That what you just said, that you were God in your film. Yeah. I mean, God doesn't feel emotions. Right. And that is a very dark part. Yeah. Because if you're a human and you meet God, you would realize that how brutal the God is. Exactly. Because it is as good as bad your polarity is. And that's why you are not feeling. But if you, as a human being, you are getting more honest and honest and honest.
Yeah, I think that's a great distinction, a great point to make. You know, there's a point where you separate the filmmaker and the person. I think, at least I found, and the filmmaker is getting across what the person wants. And it is, I don't know, at least I found it is separate, because my message in this last from the rehearsal was me exploring a feminine character dealing in a problem that is mostly a problem faced by women. And because I was God, per se, in that situation, I was not completely non-emotional, but I was very analytical, everything, at least that's the way I approach my work. If I'm using violence, if I'm using language, if I'm using gore, it's because of a reason. And, you know, that's the situation I found myself in. Giovanni, as a person, doesn't want someone yelling and cussing at someone, but as a filmmaker, from what I've seen and what I've experienced as Giovanni, I wanted to explore and conceptualize this into cinema, because like you said earlier, it speaks to the soul. I hope that what you can see on screen, you can visualize more and make it a little bit more real to yourself, even if it's not real.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to maybe, I mean, this whole place, I mean, this is why it's so cool sometimes to talk to someone who is very much into their craft, which is, no matter what you do, I mean, if you are deeply entrenched in one aspect of this reality, you can understand so much from that small part that you can make predictions about how the reality works, and it generally comes true because you put so much attention to that one spot. Exactly. So this tells something about what is the polarity of where we actually create all the art and where we live and how we put these messages across. I mean, if, let's suppose, and this is of course an assumption, that we have these different polarities of, as you said, two people. Yeah. So we are at a place where there is something happening. So opposite of that, whoever, and I don't want to make it like, oh, someone created it. I don't mean it in that way.
Yeah.
It's just that I don't have any words to say it. But whatever could be a source of it, or whatever the cycle is, that might be something very calm and quiet and just absent.
Yeah.
And that's why it seems like a singularity. So it is so crazy that you can look at a Big Bang, which is just nothing and whole universe, and a person which is sitting right across me has like same properties
as that. Yeah.
And you are experiencing that in making your movie.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important, where you can, you know, extrapolate your ideas and test your honesty against these kind of, you know, abstract rules. And of course, I mean, again, they're not rules, but I mean, it is important sometimes, again, when you are making films, especially you're making films, to test your honesty. And I think that is a very hard thing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the whole conversation about what's a good story is one for the storybooks, ironically. But at least in my opinion, the best storytellers, the talented storytellers, the ones that make cinema that lasts longer than just a year or two. The films we look back to, the Kubricks, the Hitchcocks. I think the films we'll look back to today, the Nolans, the Villeneuves. They're very intellectual people. Very intellectual people. They're filmmakers. They're filmmakers, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're not. Filmmaking is just the way they express their thoughts. And I think that's something, even more so now that it's going to be more drowned out. Because, you know, what we're having lately is that anyone can use a camera. Anyone can get access to this. It's like the new cool thing to go to film school. And everyone wants to be a filmmaker. Everyone wants, you know, just like everyone wants to be a CEO, everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, everyone wants to be a director. But what you have is you have people that are good at the craft, improving their craft, but I feel like aren't improving themselves or learning and experiencing new things. Now, I'm not saying that people aren't experiencing new things. I'm saying experiencing in the way that, I don't mean to be arrogant, but in the way that it's like a philosophical, intellectual discussion within oneself, right? To write a story, to put a moonlight together, you have to have either learned or experienced from so much. And that's not to say you have to, go to space to make a Star Wars, but you have to have your intentions come from something. You look at Star Wars, George Lucas basically took his experiences then to turn Star Wars, right? You have the Empire. Who's the Empire? It's America. The Empire is America, or imperialism, colonialism. And who's the rebels? The Viet Cong, right? The Taliban even, right? They're rebel fighters that are fighting against an empire. And he said these things himself, right? So it's like these expressions of fantasy, of fiction, of narrative are all based on our human experience.
Yeah, they are all... Joseph Campbell was a very good friend of George Lucas. And I think they did some stories together. And all work of Joseph Campbell is about the work of myth.
Right.
The work of collective consciousness. Right. And that's how, you realize all these narratives in us. And that is the most interesting part for I think, talking or actually listening to anyone, which is, as you said, they are just using cinema because that is the most advanced form to actually express that deep down collective emotions and expressions and myths and narratives, which coexist like completely at different places to bring out, to be honest, whatever could come out of that and like somehow build something on it. It's so abstract.
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, what kind of person would want to be in that position where you have to learn so much about something but still not be like dedicated to it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And again, like maybe bringing it like more closer is that why are we talking about this kind of an art form, or why are we talking about a metaphor? I mean, I think that as you were saying about I guess I don't have words. It's sometimes it's hard to be honest about what we are talking and keep the abstraction and then still use words about it. And that's exactly one of the reasons why I think it's important to talk towards these ideas.
Yeah.
Because it just breaks down many thoughts which you are having. Yeah. And then you are left with no words.
You're left with no words, yeah.
Yeah. And then you create something.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like it's it's difficult to tell you why I made a film.
No, yeah.
I mean, I could, but do I really know why I made a film? I honestly don't.
Yeah.
I honestly don't. It's difficult.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about migration?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, what are you thinking to make a movie about it, or that's?
Yeah, I mean, naturally, it's like my low key obsession, like to read about and to learn about. Like, I don't know why, but I just get excited to read about passports. Maybe because I've traveled so much and have had a chance to be in a passport line for so long, especially in Europe, because I'm not going in and out of the US very often, so I don't get the express line. But I think to narrow it down for migration, I think maybe immigrants. We can talk about immigrants. I am writing a story about a young immigrant to the US. And I'm very interested in this concept of identity and who we are. Because, like, if someone asks me, where are you from? I'm going to say Houston, or I'm going to say Texas. Even though I was born in Mexico City. Because I'm not from Mexico City. I speak with an American accent. I've grown up in an American high school. I've grown up in an American city. I've grown up in an American culture. Sure, I'm Mexican, but I'm not really Mexican, right?
Yeah.
Because I've grown up somewhere else. I've formed my whole identity somewhere else. I have my heritage and my culture in some way, shape, or form, but even then, like, I'm a kid sitting next to me in my AP government class in high school. When I said that I was born in Mexico City, it was like, what? Gio, I thought you were born here. You know why he said that? Because he was actually a hardcore Republican who was really against Mexicans coming to the US. So I destroyed his reality. I destroyed his perception. And yeah, so to me, it's very interesting and very just captivating analyzing that. And I think, I don't know, I wrote in my notepad, one of the first passages, it's like, I need to write this film because there's something inside of me that tells me that I need to tell this story. I need to capture this story that I'm telling, which, I mean, I don't want to say what it is because I'm not even to that point yet. I'm getting there of what exactly it'll be, but I'm building the layers, just like Moonlight was building layers. I'm building layers.
It's very... So I am an immigrant. Like, I mean, I think so, but I don't consider it because I think my experience is very odd because it's not like a very typical immigrant experience or migration experience, I would say. Because I could fight back. So it's a very different experience. You could fight back. Yeah. If you had that much of a support.
Yeah, leverage. I'll tell you, there's a. I saw this documentary about Central Americans from Guatemala and El Salvador and Honduras migrating to Mexico from Mexico to the U.S. because they have to go through the whole passage, and there was this guy, this Mexican man, who said. He told them, once you're an immigrant, you're always an immigrant, and you'll always be the enemy. And, like, yes, to people in those position when you're in that position where you haven't had the chance to have an education, you haven't had the chance to move forward in life, right? And you're an immigrant, not out of necessity, not out of choice, but out of necessity, and not even out of opportunity. It's just because if you don't, you'll get killed, or you won't survive for very long. And I think that's what's not understood as much, because you and I, our stories aren't the things that can be sensationalized, because they've worked.
Yeah.
They've worked out. You're working in a university. You're not saying that they're not productive members of society, but you're at a different societal level of your output. When they come, they're doing expendable things, right? And that, because they're doing expendable work, they become expendable as people. And I don't think that's right, but that's the way the system treats them.
It's very it's so odd, because there's so many conversations going on migration.
Yeah.
I actually talked to this researcher who's a senior policy advisor who's working on migration. Beautiful work she's doing.
Yeah.
But the conversation which I'm talking about is that there is one conversation where you only look at migration through rules and regulations and borders and nationalism. And then there's another conversation where you say, oh yeah, we are all from Africa. So, and that, which is true. And then there is another conversation, which is that, and you can't have humanity without migration.
Right, yeah, of course.
We have always migrated, and we will always migrate. And sometimes migration come out of necessity. Sometimes it comes out of motivation.
Right.
And sometimes it comes out like the German scientist all in NASA.
Yeah.
The Nazi scientist.
Yeah.
So it's just, however...
Come here, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, exactly. So I think right now I think that is what, and I think it's a good spot to make a movie about migration.
Yeah, it is. It's a moment.
I think that is the pragmatic self.
Yeah, that's the pragmatic self.
You catch those moments.
Yeah.
See, again, like, anyone would be like cynical about it.
Right.
They'll be like, oh yeah, you're like making a movie because it's a hot topic. It's like, but so what's bad about it?
Right. I mean, it's a reaction to what I'm seeing, right? Yeah. It's a reaction to to what I mean, quite literally, I'm young. I've grown up with that, and I'm going to react to that, right?
But I think all these paradigms are going to break somehow. And I don't mean in a good way or a bad way. Something would change about it, because there's just so much contradiction going on. The people who are working with migration, they sometimes don't address the challenges which are there. I mean, because we do live in a society which has culturally torn apart so far away that if one culture comes to another culture, there will be friction. Right. And you just have to accept it.
Yeah, that's the way it works,
You can't be like, oh no, it's just we have to all accept it, and it's all this person's...
It's not that simple.
I wish it was.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll tell you, like... I mean, my family was Mexican moving to the US, but like... I didn't grow up Mexican. Like, my parents just were happy for me to speak English and to go to a school and learn how an American would be. And they never said, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but I have friends that's like, their parents tell them, don't forget you're Mexican. And sure, my parents in some way, shape, or form, maybe they told me that, but like, I didn't fight assimilation. I embraced it. Like, I wanted to be American. I wanted to learn English. I wanted to be an American, right? And that friction you have when maybe you're not as, because I was young, I was a baby when I moved to the US, but whenever you've already formed your identity and you're moving to a new place and the culture doesn't accept you and you don't accept the culture, what happens there? Yeah. That's where you get problems and friction.
Yeah. Like, same, I mean, my and your story, as you were saying, are very few ones actually.
Right.
Yeah. But
maybe there's some, but it's just that you don't hear about them because they work.
No. Yeah. So So that you can't share more about what you're going to be working on.
Oh yeah, I can. I mean, so I've been for the longest time. I've been thinking about sorry, whoa. No. I've been thinking about the undocumented children that were brought into the U.S. when they were young, and they've grown up American, and that's what the story is about. It's a coming of age, looking at a coming of age from that perspective, because I've never seen it. I've never seen that perspective done. You know, you always have the typical American high school kids. We're finishing high school and then we're going to go to college. But turn that upside down. Yeah. You're going to go to college, but wait, you can't apply to college because you're not American. And that's the theme of the film. And
that's cool. Yeah.
And I just want to say, I feel like I'm in a position to tell that because. Not because I was near that or I could have faced that, but because people coming from Mexico, like, you know, the people that immigrate illegally are from a different, you know, not caste, but they're from a different societal level. They're poor, they're working class, and they're looking for opportunities. And Mexico's a very classist society. And my family was middle class. My parents had college education, my mother a master's. So, you know, even in the UK, in America, and every country, there's us, right? And even above us, there's the people saying it's us, yes, right? And it's like that. Yeah. And I am from a fortunate and privileged position, but I'm also close to it, whether it's out of heritage or it's out of situation or circumstance. And I feel like I'm in the position to tell that story.
I share your feeling. Because what we are doing right now, it is very odd and it's impossible that I come from a background where I speak Punjabi and Urdu or Hindi, and I'm speaking English, and I'm just sitting in UK. And you come from Mexico's background, but you've grown up in America, so you speak Spanish, and then you speak English, and you are now in UK in London.
And it's all migration.
I know, and we are talking about it. So of course, we are very much privileged, but we have our parts of having that, you know. Exposure, I would say, like hard touch. Yeah. So, but not that much that we have damage. So it's really privileged.
It's a really privileged position to be in, where you've had so many amazing experiences, both good and bad, and perspectives.
But I must put that caveat somehow, like some sort of a warning about something. And I think you talked about it when you were. So of course, when you are, you know, navigating all these different trains and you have different cultural ideas and you're trying to figure out many various realities, and you're making movie and I want to do something which is, or you wouldn't be able to follow a one path which is okay and somehow laid out by someone. You would copy different bits and pieces and you would try to work. So it is somehow a place where you actually go out of a cultural path. It's like how I explain it. It's like you can go out behind your tribe, and then you can see that the path has been laid out, and you can take little turns. But then sometimes you can take a left turn, and it's very interesting. And like a spike can gouge your eye out. And literally, you would lose an eye. Yeah. I actually want to put that warning that we are encouraging and we think it's amazing. It is. If it works. Because I and you might have seen that many times we come very close to just losing pretty much everything, maybe. Yeah. And that is why we are not that scared to just go out. Yeah. But I think that is why that's why when you were talking about that, some of the friends of yours or the people around you might think that this guy's a little crazy. I think this is the consequences of taking those kind of turns, right? You know, where you are not doing conventional things.
I think, very frankly, it's like I've built this system that I have to follow to be able to keep doing what I'm doing, right? Like, I need to have my routine. I need to have my certain amount of social interaction. I need to have my things, because what I do, it's like, it's not singular, like not in a, again, not in an arrogant sense, but it's like, it's so, you're so in your head that's dangerous, you know, when you're so in your head. And if you don't have the things to ground you to normal life, to your humanity, your routine, to structure everything that you're doing, then I think you just get lost in your whatever creative process that might be.
No, I mean, you don't have to say, if I'm talking to you, I can see it that, it's not condescending in any way. I mean, but again, we are talking about that it looks cool from outside. If you just see the products. And if you see the lifestyle. But I must say, that's exactly, we agree on it. And because we have tried to do it, and you might not make it.
You're right.
It's a very important thing. I think this thing is not said enough. I think so, because that what's happened to me. I really thought that how everyone is talking about, and I understand that human, dramatize things, and it's beautiful, and we dramatize then what they have dramatized in our head, and it's just become this thing. And not enough is said about. It's not something that you should just take a leap of faith. The reason why it's called leap of faith is because you don't know where you're gonna fall.
Right.
I mean, would you fall in a stack of hay? Like always in Assassin's Creed.
Right, yeah. Are you gonna land in it, or are you gonna
you're gonna get splattered.
Yeah.
And literally, you can have like a pure death where you won't able to recover.
Right.
I mean, by inside of your head.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, Whenever you think, I want to do what Steven Spielberg has done, I want to do what Christopher Nolan has done, in a way, whether it's physical or emotional, it is dangerous, because you're going out on a limb. Like you said, you're taking a leap of faith, and you might not land. But if you do, then how do you? That's the whole other another thing.
Yeah.
To me, my answer is process and self-control and discipline. To someone else, it might be emotional gratification, because that's how they create and that's how they feel comfortable. I don't know. It's to each their own.
Yeah. Do you want to add something?
No, I don't know.
Yeah?
If you ask me a specific question, I can.
Okay. That's it then.